Hey, we're cooking with gas here on the Jewcast.
Okay, careful using a phrase like that.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries of a sham.
Tradition!
Oh, shut up, Carl! Shut your goddamn Jew mouth! You people are why there's war in the Middle East!
Gekackt von Jan.
Nebbig.
Verpoepoepoe.
Vermischt.
Verkackt.
Vertutzt.
Verstonken.
Farted.
Exactly.
You're what Grammy Hall would call a real Jew.
Hexameach to everybody. Hope you had a happy Passover. We got another American Jew podcast coming at you. My name is Jordan Ferber.
I'm Jonathan Randall. We hope you're still enjoying Passover if you're celebrating it, whether you're a non-Jew or a Jew.
Right. I mean, there are Christians that are getting in on the action this year. We got some Goyish Seders happening around the country.
There are Christian Seders that are happening, and a lot of Jews are really upset about it. They think it's appropriation. They think they shouldn't be celebrating Seders. I guess a woman posted a picture on Twitter with a challah, like a cross, and people really freaked out because, of course, you're not supposed to have any bread on Passover. Personally, I don't really see what the problem is. If Christian people want to get in on Passover and celebrate it their own way, let them do it. They're telling the story about the exodus of the Jews from Egypt. That's part of what Passover is about, is raising awareness about what happened. And I think it's a good thing. And I think this is just another example of Jews love kvetching.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely an example of Jews loving to kvetch. But I think it's also an example of Christians totally missing the point of some of it. And there's lots of, I mean, I'll say this. If you want to have a Christian Seder, it's basically the Last Supper. I mean, are you going to try to, if you're not hiding the Afikomen, you got to figure out who has wronged you. You know, who's the Judas at your table this year?
Right. Well, they have, a different interpretation of the Afikomen, but, we kind of appropriated a lot of Christmas for Hanukkah, if we were going to start pointing fingers, we appropriated this, you appropriated that. I don't really think there's a problem with it. They will do it their way. Jews can do it that way. I mean, we just need to not be hating on anyone for any reason we could find, especially the Jewish people, where there's enough hatred going our way, unfortunately, all over the world. I mean, in America, the Anti-Defamation League recently released a new survey that I guess 63% of Jews have witnessed or experienced anti-Semitism in the last 5 years. Yeah. And 59% feel less safe this year than they did last year, which is not a good thing.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. I mean, we talk about this every week. We ask a lot of people that we ask everybody that we've had on the show whether or not they've seen any overt anti-Semitism, and
or any anti-Semitism at all. Most people have said no, they haven't really seen it, or it's just been little or not a lot. I think in this survey, it is people that just are experiencing maybe not crazy anti-Semitism, but seeing it online or witnessing it. I got some anti-Semitism yesterday on one of my posts that I posted, and somebody said, of course this is coming from a Jew. This is why I hate Jews. I wish we killed more of you in the Holocaust.
Really?
And I was like, whoa, like that's totally unnecessary. I mean, is that crazy anti-Semitism? No, but it is anti-Semitic. It's, putting that kind of shit out there. It's not good. It's horrible.
It's crazy that there's so much anti-Semitism that a comment like that isn't even crazy anti-Semitism.
No, yeah, you're like, okay, yeah. I mean, it's not only in America. In Canada, they said that they had 6 incidents of anti-Semitism every day in 2019, and that the most targeted group for hate crimes are Jews, even though they make up less than 1% of the population, but they get 17% of police-reported hate crimes. It's insane. It's crazy. Why do people hate the Jews so much? I made an anti-religion video, and I got a lot of beef about like, you say you're a Jew on your profile. Like, what are you talking about? And it's like, this is why I'm proud to be a Jew. This is why I put it out there that I'm a Jew, because we are so hated. And this isn't just now, it's throughout history. And yet we still are able to persevere. And I'm proud of it. But it is absolutely insane that there's this much Jew hate going on and that it seems to be only growing. You know what? I think we need like a hero to protect us.
I mean, that's how you know things are bad, when it's happening in Canada, because they're like the most polite people ever, but they still hate the Jews.
I mean, a lot of people there apparently don't like the Jews, but Canada has a very large Jewish population.
Right. I mean, that's why. I mean, I guess that's part of the reason. Like that, the Jews.
I mean, compared to all the places in the world, even though in Canada they only make up 1%, but there's a lot of Jews in Canada. Like I said, I think we need a hero, and apparently we've had a Jewish hero this whole time.
Yeah, I didn't even know. I had no idea. Apparently, Batman is Jewish. That we only learned because Batwoman just got buried, and they outed her as a Jew.
Right, so this was on the Batwoman CW show, right?
Right. Apparently in the comics, she's been out as Jewish since 2006.
Yeah, she's been Jewish. Kate Kane is her name. She's been Jewish for a while. She's Jewish and a lesbian, which I have a little bit of beef with. Like, do they have to make her Jewish and a lesbian? Can they have a Jewish character and a lesbian character? But they're like, let's just make them all together. But still, there's not a lot of Jewish gay representation, so that is kind of nice to see that somewhere. I guess in this episode, she dies. They have a funeral. Some of the people are wearing kippahs. They're saying some of the prayers. Jews, I guess you're only supposed to be buried like straight in the ground, but I guess American law doesn't let that, so they have a very basic like wooden box that she was buried in, but
with the Jewish star on it.
With the Jewish star, but she, I guess, is, she's cousins with Bruce Wayne, who's Batman, and her father is Batman's mother's brother, which kind of means that Batman's mother's Jewish, which makes Batman Jewish.
I know, it's
a lot
amazing.
of the people that came up with Batman, they were Jewish, and it's like no one ever mentions really that Batman is Jewish. Usually he comes across more like of a vibe that he's like not really a Jew, but apparently he is. But now everyone's going to be like, yeah, that's why he's so rich and he has all the money. They're just going to say it's like an allegory for like the Rothschilds or some bullshit. But I think it's cool that Batman is Jewish. I did not know that. I'm going to be spreading that like a motherfucker, and I'm happy to be talking about it here. I want to see like a bat signal with like a yarmulke and some payas.
Listen, we talk about this a lot, about how, a lot of these comic book superheroes were created by Jews. Bob Kane, the guy that created Batman, was Jewish,
Right, and Bill Finger, right? He was also Jewish.
Yes.
He really did a lot of the creating of Batman and didn't get a lot of credit. There's a great documentary about it that you should check out.
But also, I mean, just if you think about Batwoman being named Kate Kane, I mean, the name Kane comes directly from Bob Kane, who was one of the creators of Batman as well. So it's
right. He got a lot of the attention for creating Batman, but then as the years come by, it really became aware that what he did was like he had an idea and he hired other people to actually write a lot of this stuff, and they are the ones that actually did it, and he kind of took credit for it all. But I'm glad Batman is here. We need more heroes. I mean, there's crazy stuff going on for Jews all over the world. I thought this was crazy how in Yemen.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're talking. It's just funny that like on this episode we're talking about how like there's a huge Jewish population here. Yemen, not as big a population as it turns out.
Right. Well, in Yemen, there at one point was 50,000 Jews, but now in the pro-Iran region, it's down to only 6 Jews are left there, and one of them is in prison. And I guess 13 Jews just left. They just made a deal to leave, which I guess I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. They went to Egypt. Apparently, part of their deal was that they were going to release this guy that's in jail because they say that he's accused of smuggling a deerskin Torah into Israel. I mean, I just think it's crazy that like they hate Jews so much they're like trying to like make deals to get them out of the country, to get them away. Yeah. Jews, this is how the persecution is still going on. From 50,000 Jews to 6.
And this is a bad weird year to go back to Egypt. Also, a bad week to go back to Egypt.
Well, bad timing to go back to Egypt. Yeah, with Passover. But they went there. I guess they wanted to go to the United Arab Emirates, but that didn't really work out for them, or they couldn't do it. So they ended up going to Cairo. I mean, I wish them safety. All the Jews from Yemen that have been taken out, whether they were forced out, whether they made arrangements to leave, I hope they have feel better about the lives that they have in the new places, whether it's Israel or Egypt or the UAE. It's really insane to think that they've lived, in this anti-Semitic area where they were basically hated and not wanted there just because of who they are, just because of their religion, you know? And a lot of these pro-Iran people, they're religious people too. And they've decided to take the ugliness and interpret, you know, the Quran or the beauty that's in Islam for these negative ways and like to spread hatred. And they think that's okay and it's wrong. And it's a horrible representation of Muslim people. And it's really sad and it's really a shame. I think it's good that these 13 people just left. There's 6 more people. They don't want to leave. I mean, one can't leave because he's in prison. His name is Levi Salam Musa Marahabi. I'm probably saying that very wrong, but that's his name. He's in jail. One of the people that left, one of the 13 said it was a quid pro quo that they agreed to leave and they would free this guy. But the people, the pro-Iranian region in Yemen are saying, no, that's not true. That's not really what happened. Who knows what's right and what's wrong? We hope this guy gets out of jail. It can't be good to be in a prison in Yemen, especially if you're a Jew. And, you know, it's Passover now, and we left Egypt where the Jews were enslaved. And, you know, I wish that there would be a Passover. You know, a lot of Passovers, they say, oh, next year in Israel. Well, I want to say next year there'll be less anti-Semitism.
Indeed. I think that's always a thing to strive for. And that's why I think it's also good that even people who don't identify as Jewish, or that, you know, even people that aren't involved in a lot of the Jewish practices will still fight against anti-Semitism. Like there are people that are still in the fight that are not necessarily even considered to be Jews by other Jews. Like, that's a whole big question now, is like, who's Jewish?
Jews got to stop doing that. Who's
I know.
Jewish? Who's not Jewish? Who cares? That's what I say. It doesn't matter. We need to stop judging our own people. We've said this numerous times on the podcast. We need to have an open heart. We need to be accepting. We need to grow the Jewish people, whether we accept or believe that their conversion was right or wrong, whether their father's Jewish, whether their mother's Jewish. It doesn't matter. We need as many allies as we can get. We need to be united so awful things like the Holocaust never happen again. So maybe one day there can be a thriving Jewish community in Yemen. Hopefully, you know, we need to recognize that people are different and it's okay to be different. And we can disagree and we can have opinions that might conflict with one another, but it doesn't have to turn into violence and hatred.
You know, we always say that if you want to be a Jew, be a Jew. Like, it's, you know, welcome to the party. But there are a lot of Jewish sects that don't necessarily accept everybody that way. Like, there's this a new study that came out that said that there are 7.6 million Jews in the U.S. But, you know, the question is how many of them are actually accepted by the major Jewish population, you know? And
well, the major Jewish population, or like Hasidics or
right.
Orthodox people. You know, I think the major population of Jews in America have developed a more secular approach that are like us, that are more culturally Jewish, you know, than they are religious. I feel like that's a very hard concept for a lot of people to understand and to grasp. Even in my video, you know, a lot of people say, you say you're a Jew in your profile. How are you speaking out about religion? And it doesn't matter. We've talked about this all the time. When the anti-Semites are there, they don't give a shit if you keep kosher or celebrate the Shabbos. You're a Jew. If we were alive during World War II and we were in occupied Germany, the Nazis wouldn't have been like, hey, you're cool. You don't really believe in God. They'd have been like, get the fuck on the train. So we need to just like understand that Jews are more than a religion. We are people. I know there's been a whole debate. Is the Jewish people a race? Is it a religion? And it really has become both. And I think that's a lot because of, you know, the way people view us.
Well, there apparently in this new study that came out about how many, you know, about American Jews, that there is a group that they have deemed Jews of no religion, in that they don't really identify as being Jewish, but they have Jewish connections, and other people might identify them as Jewish, but they don't identify as any other faith. People that
people might say, hey, you're Jewish, but they don't think they're Jewish. But I think we're saying if you want to be Jewish, you know, there are plenty of people out there that actually their mother's Jewish. They may have even been raised Jewish, but they have no connection to Judaism now, and they don't feel like they're a part of it, and they don't want to be associated with Judaism or considered a Jewish person. But then there are other people that people might say, oh, you're not really Jewish, that do want to be considered a Jewish person. So if you want to be Jewish, we need to be accepting to the people that want, and the people that aren't really interested, we need to accept that as well. I'm excited about the Jewish guest that we have on the show today, though.
We have an amazing guest today.
I don't know if anyone saw the movie War Dogs, but I think it's a great movie, directed by Todd Phillips, starring Jonah Hill, Miles Teller, Bradley Cooper's in the movie. Anyways, it's based on this guy, David Packouz. His dad was a rabbi. He's very secular now, and he was an arms dealer. He's who the character Miles Teller is based on, and we got him on the show.
Yeah, you like grew up with him.
My brother was friends with him growing up. He prayed at the same synagogue that I did. The movie, I saw it on Netflix, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, it'd be so great to have this guy on. And thankfully, my brother connected me with him, and we were able to get him. He was open to be on the show. He's also a musician and an inventor, and he definitely has an interesting perspective on Judaism. And it was great that he just shared his stories about what happened in the movie and what's real and what's not.
This was the perfect time to partner with him. So let's get him into the podcast.
All right. We're super excited to have David Packouz on the show today. He's a musician and an inventor, and he was the inspiration for the movie War Dogs, if you've seen it. How you doing, David?
I'm doing good. How about you, John?
I'm doing great. David also grew up as an Orthodox Jew, right?
I did, along with you. We went to the same synagogue.
Right? Back in the day.
Oh, really?
Look how far we've come.
Yeah,
Man.
there we go.
How come Jonathan didn't get pulled into the arms race?
Well, he got lucky.
Do you view it that way now, that it was like a bad thing that happened in your life, or do you think that some positivity came from it?
Well, definitely, at least for me, it ended well. I'm very grateful that it ended the way it did, and that I got out. It was definitely a crazy story, and something that I never expected to go through, or didn't plan to go through, really. But I will say that I'm glad I'm not in that business anymore.
Yeah.
And I definitely learned a lot from the experience, and I'm grateful that I had gone through the experience. What they say, it's like the difficulties in life is what makes you, So I wouldn't trade, that for anything. I can't complain because I didn't go to prison. Nothing particularly horrible happened, as an aftermath from my involvement in that. Definitely there were some very big risks that I took, and it could have gone way, way worse than it did. And I'm grateful that it didn't.
I think it's kind of...
But I acknowledge that it could have. Yeah,
it's
I'm
kind
sorry.
Of, kind of ironic that you got into the music business for the safety and security.
Yeah. Very true. That is very true. It's not a business that most people go into for security.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah.
So how's Judaism involved in your life these days?
Yeah, no, it was just, so I am a very secular Jew. I would call myself a cultural Jew more than a religious Jew. Philosophically, I definitely lean heavily towards the atheist end of the spectrum. My father, as you know, was somewhat of a well-known rabbi, and so that obviously created a lot of conflicts, with the family and everything growing up. But these days, I'm on very good terms with my family. They've accepted who I am as I've accepted who they are. And, we leave each other in peace as far as that goes. So as far as Judaism in my life these days, I would say it's largely more on just how I relate to my family and to the friends that I grew up with, who, are very much part of the, of the culture and, of the traditions. So that's my relationship with Judaism. It's more about the relationship with the people, who are in my life.
So I know you're married, David. Is your wife Jewish?
So I am not married. I was married to the girl who's played by Anna de Armas in the movie. We got married, and we were married for 5 years. We have a daughter together. My daughter is 14, and no, she was not Jewish. And
I just asked you that because I saw that your dad wrote a book, How to Prevent Interfaith Marriage, and I don't know, I just love that you married a non-Jewish girl, and he's like having this book, How to Promote Interfaith Marriage, and it's like bullshit, you know?
Right.
I mean, no offense to
So
your dad.
yeah, my dad. That's okay. I would say I probably agree with you. But my father wrote a book, as you know, How to Prevent an Intermarriage, and he was that was like his number one, I guess, passion subject in the matter. That, if he had to pick one, everyone, kind of has their, what do you call it? Your mission in life, right? Yeah. And his was to perpetuate, the way he saw it was to perpetuate the Jewish people by encouraging Jews to marry other Jews so that they have Jewish children, and ideally to follow in the traditions of Judaism. I definitely disappointed him on both of those counts. I don't follow the traditions of Judaism, and my daughter, at least as far as Orthodox Jews are concerned, is not Jewish. Her mother is from Spain and, never converted or anything like that. Not that I ever asked her to or anything. But my dad wrote a book, How to Prevent an Intermarriage, and he has a son who intermarried. So it's definitely on the personal. Well, it was. Let me tell you, he did not get a kick out of it. He did not. It was a very painful thing to him.
That if you want to be Jewish, be Jewish. It doesn't matter who your mother is, who their mother was. Right. It doesn't matter. If it's interesting to you, if you care about it, then do it. And all this kind of infighting in Judaism, you're not Jewish enough, you're not Jewish. It's just bad for the Jewish people, and we have enough people hating us in the world. We need all the numbers we can get.
Was he more upset? Was he more upset that you didn't take his advice, or was he more upset about the optics? This is going to kill the book sales.
Well, first of all, I don't think his book sold very well, regardless. He actually gave away most of the printed books for free, and he made it available for free download online. So anyone can get a copy of it. He wasn't about selling books. He was really about his mission, which was, as he saw it, saving the Jewish people. And I think he was most, he definitely wasn't happy about the optics. That's for sure. I don't think you need to delve too deep to figure that one out. But, I honestly believe that he, genuinely, believed in all the things he wrote, and in, his mission of the way he saw it, saving the Jewish people. And so he was just upset because of that. He was, very, very upset that one of his children, went off the faith in that way. But it is what it is. And, I love my daughter. She's my daughter. So it doesn't matter whether he thinks she's Jewish or not. It doesn't matter.
When would you say that your shift from Orthodoxy to becoming a lot more secular started? Because I feel like that stuff would have come before all of the stuff that's in the movie and stuff, prior to that.
Yeah, it did.
Taking acid by the Dead Sea and meditating, having a transcendental experience. That you're having your own religious experience there that's outside of Judaism.
Yeah. So my spiritual journey, I guess if you would call it that, began, I would say, probably around when I was 13. I started getting into science fiction, reading a lot of science fiction. And that's, in general, as sci-fi fans know, most sci-fi is written by scientists, and they tend to be somewhat skeptical of organized religion, and that comes across in the writing. And so that started making me think about these issues. And I started questioning. I asked my dad about various things that didn't really make sense from his philosophical framework. And I went back and forth throughout my teens. Definitely was a bit of a juvenile delinquent, as John knows. I was good friends with his brother, Zach Randall. Shout out to Zach. But after high school, I went to Israel for the standard, study abroad thing that most Jews do, that most Orthodox Jews do. And I wasn't religious at the time, but I was really searching for, my spiritual path, when I was over there. And that's when I experimented with the hallucinogens, as you mentioned, and tried to find my own spiritual path. And I had some, very, very profound and moving experiences in that way. Definitely out of the framework of traditional Judaism, but it was something that I found invaluable and really helped me discover who I was as a human being, and as a person, and helped me relate to, the spiritual practices that I was told that I needed to have. And so I started to connect a little bit more with Judaism while I was in Israel, in my spiritual search. And, but it was a very different form than what my parents, practiced. I would say I was much more on the, kind of the hippie Nanach side of Judaism at the time. And so I got into it there, for maybe like 6 months or so. The only time in my life I actually grew a beard, had to fit in right with the rest of the crew. I had. Yeah, let me tell you, I showed my daughter a picture of me with hair and a beard, and she didn't recognize me.
David, you have 8 brothers and sisters, right?
I do. Yes.
Are any of them very religious?
So 2 of my brothers and I would say 1 of my sisters is very religious.
Have any of them married a non-Jew?
No, none of them have. Though one of my brothers has been dating a non-Jew for more than 5 years now, so I guess might as well at this point. Though they haven't had children, and I don't think they intend to, at least at this point. So, it's not permanent until you have a child, right?
Oh, is that what it is? Or it's 5 years, like common law interfaith marriage?
I haven't. Definitely, my father wouldn't see it that way. He would definitely avoid calling it that.
So Judaism, though, is also kind of, I guess, that's how you met Divroli, right? And that's how you kind of got involved with everything. Yeah. So in a roundabout sort of way, it was the path that led you down to become an arms dealer.
That's true. Yeah, I actually met Divroli in synagogue. Shout out to Beth Israel in Miami Beach.
Beth Israel.
Yeah, Beth Israel. Yeah. So, we met, both of our parents went to Beth Israel, especially for Shabbos, davening, and, neither of us liked to pray. So we'd both hang out outside, and,
in the red room,
just in the red room. Yeah. Of course, when it was too hot to be outdoors, which was most of the year, we'd be in the red room, making too much noise so that once in a while an old man would come back and yell at us to keep it down, classic. And, we'd all, play basketball on, the basketball courts nearby. And, and that's kind of how we met, was through Beth Israel. We didn't go to the same school. I went to Mesivta and, in Miami Beach, and he went to, Torres Chaim. And we lost contact for a few years as he went to LA and learned the arms business from his uncle. And when he came back to Miami, we met up again, and that's how we got into the business together.
How true is the movie?
Of course I couldn't put a number on it, but I would say it's mostly true with large chunks that aren't. So if I had to put, a fraction, I would say it's 2/3 true. The overall arc of the story is largely true. There's some major details they changed. Like, for example, everyone asks about the Triangle of Death incident. That is kind of like a half truth, because that story did actually happen, but it didn't happen to us. It happened to someone else. It happened to the guy who wrote the screenplay for War Dogs, Stephen Chin. So Stephen Chin, who was a screenplay writer, he used to be a journalist before he got into Hollywood screenplays. And in 2003, right after the U.S. invaded Iraq, he was trying to get in to write war stories. Of course, no commercial airline was flying in, so he flew into to Jordan and hired someone to drive him into Iraq. And he got shot at and got saved by the army, and the whole scene actually happened to him. But so when he was writing the screenplay, the director, Todd Phillips, knew about this story that had happened to him. He was like, "Oh, that's such a cool story. We need more action in the film. Put that in." So he just based, that part on his own experiences. But we never drove through Iraq.
Were you happy with the way you were portrayed in the film?
I thought I was overall very happy. I thought I came off as a nice guy, which I am, of course, as a good guy, which I am, of course.
Of course.
Of course. I would say the biggest difference between how I was portrayed in the film and maybe real life was that in the film, they tried to make me look in the beginning as if I was just like soul with no idea what to do with my life. I think there's one of the lines in the film is like, I was totally lost. I didn't know what I was doing with my life.
I'm curious. I'm curious if you're upset that they cast Miles Teller as you, when in fact Miles Teller looks a lot more like DeVroli.
Yeah, I've heard that. Well, at least in the movie, I have great hair, so only in Hollywood.
Were you involved with the script, with the making of the movie? I know you have a cameo in it, but
so they bought my life rights, as they call it. So I got paid a little bit for the movie, nothing too crazy, not nearly as much as the actors, I'll tell you that. But I made a little bit of money off the movie, because they didn't have to pay me. Actually, the way Hollywood works is they're legally allowed to base a movie off of anyone's life as long as their name is in the public records. If there's like a newspaper article about you, then someone can make a whole movie about you using your real name and completely make everything up. And it doesn't have to be, even close to factual, just because your name is in the public record. That's kind of how the libel laws in the United States work. But, so they didn't need to buy my life rights, as they call it, to do a film, but they wanted my cooperation. So they approached me, when they decided to do the film, and they asked me if I was interested. Of course, why not? So, the screenwriter, Stephen Chin, flew to Miami for 2 weeks to interview me, and that's what he based the screenplay on.
What was it like working with Todd Phillips, who's a pretty big Hollywood directed the Hangover movies? He just directed the Joker movie. Yeah.
Todd is awesome. He's obviously top of the line professional in Hollywood, and very nice to me. Of course, he invited me to go on set a few times, while they were shooting. So that was super cool. I was there for obviously I was there for my cameo. I was there, but I was also there for the scene in the movie where they're in Live nightclub in Miami Beach, and Dan Blazarian punches Jonah Hill, in the face, because he's like hitting on his girl, So I was there when they were filming that scene. So that was cool. It was cool to see how the whole thing worked. And really, I mean, it's really interesting, as anyone who's been on a Hollywood set, knows the way it looks while they're shooting it is night and day different from how it looks when it comes out in the film, right. Because like especially like a club scene, because they have to get the actors' dialogue on the mic, recorded. but they have to make it look like a busy, loud club. So everyone's dancing completely in silent. It's like a club filled with like everyone in their club getup, and they're all dancing and going crazy and jumping up and down, like as if they're in a really loud club, and everything's dead silent. It's the weirdest thing, that to experience.
How about Miles Teller? Did he like want to shadow you? Did he really want to like method and become you, or do you think he really did his own version of you?
No, he wasn't. He didn't express any interest in doing any of that, which was fine by me. And I think that would have been a little weird, but no, I mean, we met. We chatted. We had a bit of a conversation about the story, but he was curious, about the real version of events and all that. But he didn't seem to be too concerned with getting every little personality quirk down. It wasn't important, for them to shadow, to get the characters right. Jonah Hill, has this, one thing people ask me once in a while is that if Diveroli actually laughs like Jonah Hill does in the movie, because he has this like weird, like, like weird laugh that he did. And it's funny in the movie, but no, Diveroli doesn't laugh like that. Jonah Hill just made it up. He just made it up just because he thought it was funny. And so they created their own characters for the film. It wasn't, something that they really cared to get right, so to speak.
Was there anything that happened in real life that you think should have been in the movie or you wish would have been in the movie?
That's a good question. I mean, we definitely went to a lot more places that I thought were interesting that, they didn't include in the movie, so of course Hollywood always does this. They add in parts that, to make things more exciting, but they also cut a lot out because they need to have the story move along at a good pace, So, if you have, the movie has to be 90 to 120 minutes long, and it needs to have X, Y, and Z action and this much relationship drama. And, and the story has to move at a exciting, non-boring pace. So they do a lot of editing to the story. We went to, arms shows in the United Arab Emirates, in India, in South Africa. So, we went to a lot of different interesting places around the world, which was cool, but I totally understand, that they can't put every little thing in there. So yeah, I mean, it's understandable why they cut it the way they did, but nothing, I would say, nothing, no particular like scene, there's no like, oh man, I wish they put this particular thing in there. I mean, they definitely changed things. I think in my opinion, they made Diveroli a lot more lovable in the movie than he was in real life.
Okay, wow.
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's a funny guy in real life. He's a, witty guy, and, very good at manipulating people, which they show in the movie, but I think they toned him down in the movie a lot. People, they're like, oh, was Diveroli like that? He was way worse.
He was way worse.
And then they show it. Yeah, he was way worse in real life than he was in the movie. He was more of a sociopath in real life.
Is he at all religious?
Yeah. I don't know what he's like now. I mean, obviously, but I assume he's the same.
Was he a big temple goer? I mean, was he more involved in the religious aspects?
No, he had zero religious interest, when we knew each other. We used to go, when we were kids, we'd go to temple just because our parents forced us. Right. But he never, like once he was out of his parents' house, like once in a while we would go to I think like the Chabad rabbi from like would invite us to like, a Shabbos meal, and we would go to those just because, for the chance of meeting girls,
Okay.
So yeah, so that was our main interest. But yeah, no, not the temple itself.
So, I know a problem I had growing up Orthodox with the Orthodox community was I felt a lot of judgment. I felt a lot of hypocrisy. And I wonder,
sure.
Obviously you kind of left the flock a little bit. Then you got some sort of fame because of what happened with the movie. Did a lot of people that kind of like look down on you all of a sudden come out of the woodwork?
You know, it's funny when the movie, not the movie, but like so the way the movie happened was before the movie happened, there was a front page New York Times article about us. And, you know, my mugshot was on the front page of the New York Times. It wasn't very flattering. And like my dad told me that he started getting all these phone calls from like his friends, you know, saying, hey, is this David Packouz, is he related to you? Is this like something to do with you? Because our last name is not particularly common, you know, it's very rare. I've never met anyone with our last name who wasn't related to us. So my dad was like, yeah, that's my son, you know, and they were all like, you know, kind of like giving their condolences, you know, at the time, because I wasn't like, you know, it wasn't a flattering article. And it was, you know, obviously I was in deep legal trouble at the time. When the movie came out, all my dad's friends suddenly thought it was super cool.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, yeah. My mom, not so much. My mom still hasn't seen the movie, and she says she refuses to ever see the movie. She won't see the movie, you know, as a matter of principle.
I bet you she's afraid of it actually changing her mind, because she saw everybody else kind of flip when they saw the movie, and now she's like, no, I'm going to keep my negative opinion, and nothing's going to change it.
You know, I think it's a little bit the opposite for her. The way she thinks is that, you know, she knows her son, and she doesn't need a Hollywood to tell her what her son is like, and so it's not important. Right. You know, that's how she sees it.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe it's also like she also knows who the other guy is, and doesn't want to see a nicer version of him in the film.
Maybe. Could be. Yeah. Yeah.
We like to ask our guests a series of questions.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is there anything you would like to kvetch about?
Kvetch about? Oy, let me tell you, I could kvetch until, you know, we could kvetch, we could schmooze about kvetching, we could kvetch about schmoozing, you know. What do I want to kvetch about? That is the most Jewish question ever. Look, I think everyone these days can kvetch about a lot, right? We've all got plenty to kvetch about. Personally, you know, just my personality is I don't like to kvetch, you know. It makes me focus on negative things. And I understand that a lot of people kvetch, you know, in order to, you know, as a release, you know, as a what do they call it? You know, like a cathartic thing, you know.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, for you know, that's not my style so much, you know, like I like focusing on the positive things in life, in my life. And I feel, you know, it's kind of funny you asked me about to kvetch about, but I'm going to talk about,
You're
you know,
kvetching, and I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Kvetching. I'm meta kvetching. You know, let me tell you something. People, they kvetch way too much. All they do is kvetch, you know. You want to talk, you want to schmooze, and all they want to do is kvetch, you know.
Stop with the kvetching already.
There we go. Yeah, exactly. You're making me schwitz. You're kvetching so much.
I think that's kind of funny. Like, you don't like to kvetch. You really did leave Judaism behind.
Exactly. That's how you know. That's how you know you've lost your connection when you stop kvetching. Yeah. I really have nothing to kvetch about. My life is I'm so grateful for, you know, all the good things in my life and the people in my life, and you know, I know that there's so many people are having such a hard time right now, and the world is, you know, not that great for so many people. And you know, if I was kvetching, I would feel like, you know, that's like almost disrespectful to everyone, just because, you know, I really, my life, I'm just so grateful for everything in it, and the way it's been going. I really have nothing to kvetch about. I have
that's
nothing.
Awesome. Growing up, or even now, did you or do you have a favorite Jewish holiday?
Well, I think everyone's favorite holiday is probably Purim, right? You know,
It's a
you get
good
to
one.
drink, you get to dress up, you know, I mean, how could you, you going to pick Yom Kippur? Come on.
A couple of our
We had a
guests
rabbi
picked
on
Yom
last week.
Kippur, actually.
What?
Yeah, we had our
Okay,
guest
they're
last
really
week-
into it then. I'll
our-
give them that.
Our guest last week was a rabbi, and he picked Yom Kippur. But that's he's a
Wow.
rabbi.
Well, that's because he's a rabbi.
Well,
rabbi.
he's
There you go.
a very modern rabbi. He wrote the Seinfeld
Okay.
Haggadah.
I see. So maybe his version of Yom Kippur was a bit different than what we grew up with.
Yeah, I think
I don't
maybe.
know.
Did you ever dress up as something from Purim that sticks out to you that you really enjoyed that costume?
I mean, I remember as a kid, I used to dress up as a cowboy just because then you get the cap gun, you know, you could fire that, you know, the gun, which has the little like gunpowder caps,
right. Oh yeah. I
you know,
those.
to do the little flash bangs, you know, and that always felt powerful because you're shooting a tiny little explosive.
By the way,
so that, you know, yeah.
I think maybe the rabbi likes Yom Kippur because it's the only day of the year that nobody from his congregation calls to kvetch to him about anything.
Right, they're all too thirsty and hungry to kvetch. Huh?
Yeah.
So did you ever tell your
I think some
parents,
people
hey,
kvetch
it's
even
really
more.
your fault that I got into the arms business because you let me dress up as a cowboy with a gun?
I don't think they ever made that connection, and it wouldn't be a strong claim because, you know, since I have 5 brothers, and I think at least, you know, half of them have dressed up as cowboys with guns too, and they didn't become arms dealers.
Okay.
So, you know, I don't think that would have flown. Yeah,
Not yet.
my older brother, not yet, exactly. My older brother Avram always used to dress up as my dad, you know, was in the Israeli military, and so he had his old uniform, and so my brother Avram, my older brother, would always borrow my dad's Israeli army uniform and dress up as a soldier, you know. So I think if anyone should be an arms dealer, it should be him, you know, more than you know, me with my little, you know, 6-shooter. But yeah, he didn't become an arms dealer, so I don't think it would have flown.
Do you have a favorite Jewish food?
Gefilte fish. Let's see. I'll tell you, it's definitely not matzah. That's probably one of my least favorite Jewish foods. Just because at the Seder, they make you eat so much of it before the food comes. So you end up having constipation by the time the matzo ball soup comes, right? So it's, that's definitely not matzah. Let's see, Jewish foods that I really like. I mean, I love latkes, you know, that's always great. You know, anything my mother cooks, but that's, you know, I guess, you would call that mother's food, and you wouldn't have to classify that as Jewish food. Of course, nobody makes a chicken soup like my mother, let me tell you.
My mom
soup and
makes a
matzo
pretty
ball.
good.
Yeah.
My mom makes a really good matzo ball soup.
Yeah, so does everyone's mom.
Yeah, right? Everybody has to say their mom makes the best one. David,
Of course.
do you have a
course.
favorite?
Otherwise, your mom will disown you.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Jew? It could
Yeah.
be fictional. It could be biblical. It could be somebody in your life.
A favorite Jew, man, that's a rough one. So many, you know. I mean, I've got John Randall, you know. I've got. Well, I mean, I've always been a huge admirer of the sciences, so definitely Einstein is probably at the top of the list. You know, I think most people, at least non-Jews, every Jew knows Einstein is Jewish, right? But most non-Jews, I don't think even know that Einstein was Jewish. So, you know, I think that's like a huge source of pride to Jews that, you know, one of the most consequential figures in all of history was Jewish. And, you know, kind of like the byword for genius, you know, was a Jew. So, you know, we could all feel very proud of ourselves for that. So, you know, if I had to pick one, I mean, I'd probably have to go with Einstein just because he's such a, you know, enormous figure with such enormous consequences on the world. But there are so many. I mean, you know, there's my dad, was, you know, obviously very, very much into Jewish pride, and was always, saying, oh, and, a Jew invented that and a Jew created that. And, he had like a whole list of all the things that like, famous Jews that have done, done impressive things. And it was quite an extensive list. I mean, he loved talking about, how I could be wrong about the exact numbers, but I think it was somewhere around like 25% of like all Nobel Prizes were won by Jews, while we're only like 0.002% of the population or something like ridiculous like that. Yeah, and so, that's, there's definitely a enormous amount of Jews throughout history, famous Jews throughout history for sure. And of course, Jews in my own personal life. I mean, I can name many Jews that, I could call them my favorite, but then it's not a favorite if you have so many, right? Yeah, right. So,
when they're in front of you, for sure.
Exactly. So I guess in order for, so that I don't get kvetching from the Jews in my life, I'll have to say Einstein because, hey, what, you think you're better than Einstein?
Sure.
Awesome.
Is there anything you want to plug besides Singular Sound?
Yeah. So obviously Singular Sound is my main, company now, and all musicians should check it out. And if you have a friend who's a musician, definitely inform them, tell them to check out the Beat Buddy, which is like your buddy that plays the beat. That's, something that most musicians are very interested in, get a lot of joy out of. But besides, Singular Sound, my brother, Ellie, and I recently launched a new company, a very different field. And we invented a product called the InstaFloss, kind of like Instagram, but floss. And the idea, as you might figure out, is it's a machine that flosses all of your teeth for you in 10 seconds using water jets. So, if you check it out, instafloss.com, it's the world's first machine in order to give you a complete 10-second floss. And we are about to start production, about to start manufacturing of it. We just launched it as a pre-order situation last summer, and it's doing really, really well. We're doing very, very well with it. And I think something like 20,000 people have already ordered in advance. You get a discount if you order in advance. So if anyone is interested in spending less time and effort on their flossing routine, and keeping a nice, healthy gum line with less effort and work, check out instafloss.com.
Oh, I'm gonna
or 10-second floss.
Sure. Also. 10-second floss. Yeah. I mean, that sounds good. I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, 10-second floss. Yeah. 10secondfloss.com is also one of the websites. They all point to the same place. 10, the number 10, and then second floss.
And when it
so
only
10-second
takes 10
floss.
seconds to floss, you'll have more time to kvetch for all of our Jewish listeners out there.
Exactly. You could kvetch about why it's not 5 seconds. I mean, if you made it 10 seconds, why can't it be 5?
Or you could have one less thing to kvetch about, also.
Oh,
there you go.
Right.
That's always a good thing.
Cool. Well, definitely check out InstaFloss.
Yeah.
Check out Singular Sound.
Yeah.
And David, thank you so much for coming on the show and taking the
My
time.
pleasure.
Really appreciate it. It's
My
good
pleasure.
To see you. I'll send Zach your regards.
Likewise, John. Please do. Always great to see him.
Definitely.
And thank you, John. It was great talking to you too.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, good to meet you, David.
You too.
All right.
Take care, guys.
Bye, David.
Later.
Shalom.
Big thanks to David Packouz for coming on the show. Check out his businesses. Maybe you need to get some flossing done. Maybe you need a beat buddy. Of course, you could check us out, AmericanJewPodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email. Sign up for our Patreon. Follow us on Instagram. Send us your meme ideas, and we will post them on our Instagram. And, of course, you could check me out at Jonathan Randall across all social media.
Yes, and you can check me out on Instagram at BeatNickNudnik. You can always follow my other podcast, Where's the Grief? Thank you, guys, for listening. We'll see you next time. Fix 'em.